Hello everyone, welcome back to OpenLine. We are talking with health and wellness coach Dyan Damron, who is here talking about challenges we all face this time of year, specifically now as we start the football season tailgating. A lot of us are going to be doing tailgating as the football season starts. So what are some of the do's, don'ts? Hot wings. We already talked about that.
Yeah.
And I learned some stuff there.
And one thing, another kind of little shocker that I didn't say is we said it's about a day's worth of fat and calories, but just the buffalo chicken, it's basically like eating a stick of butter. So you just put a stick of butter or the hot wings, either one you choose.
Oh no! See, now that's all right. See, it's good to hear that, so that
just
maybe I have one or two, but you just don't eat a whole plate.
Or every once, again, pick your battles. Like we talked about, if it's 4 or 5 days of the week that you're having these football parties, pick your battles. Have them, once, every home game that your NFL home game, or something. You
right,
just pick your battles.
And understand what it is.
Right.
All right. So I want to talk about, let's talk about nachos.
Right. Nachos, it's usually, not only is it based on the fried chips that it's on, but it's loaded with lots of things, the ground beef, refried beans, which actually refried beans, it is fried in lard, which is just animal fat. So you're much better off having, black beans and things like that. But so once you load your nachos on, and then you've got cheese and sour cream and all that, it actually will have it's equal to half a cup of lard. So like, not only do you have, like, if you were to have your little, pile of nachos, it's about a half a cup.
So
of just
is lard
fat.
Good for you? Lard is bad for you.
Lard, yes, yeah. I mean,
right.
It's basically, and a little bit, animal fats are usually going to be better than like margarine or your processed fats. I mean, I grew up with, my granny kept a Tupperware thing full of bacon grease to cook with.
We kept that.
Yeah,
it was disgusting, but it was there, right there by the.
She would use like a spoonful at a time and not a half a cup, which is what is equated to these nachos. So you just have to think about in terms of volume, and that's about 30 to 35 grams of saturated fat. That saturated fat is where it comes in. So. Well,
then that means Mexican food is not good. Those refried beans are not healthy.
No, the refried, whenever you're going to a Mexican restaurant or if you're picking nachos or anything like that, usually now, in most cases these days, you can always get black beans as a substitute to the refried beans. So you always want to pick those as a
I didn't know that. I really didn't know that. All right. So nachos, so you have the refried beans, which of course I like. The cheese, not good, and the chips.
Yeah. And
the sour cream.
Yeah, and usually it's some kind of ground beef is going to be on there, which is usually going to be a greasier type of ground beef and not some of your leaner ground beef that's on there. So
again, just know what you're getting into there, and act accordingly.
And you can always ask to substitute if let's say you are going, and nachos are usually going to be at like a sports bar or at a restaurant. It's less tailgating type food because they're going to go soggy if by the time you take them to tailgate. So restaurants are going to be super accommodating nowadays, and so just ask for black beans, or ask for sour cream on the side, or ask for extra salsa instead of the cheese, or just pick your battles. Know everything, all the layers that are on there, and say, okay, I don't necessarily need all of these fattening layers, and maybe pick one or two that you'll substitute something.
Okay, what about slaw? Coleslaw.
Coleslaw. And coleslaw is definitely a staple in the South for any type of tailgating parties, parties at home that you're going to have, football parties.
That's your chance at a tailgate party to get your greens, right?
Right. And but the thing about it is they're usually loaded with sour cream and full-fat mayo, which not only is it super unhealthy, but the longer it sits out, the less healthier it's going to be.
It's going to be dangerous, right?
Yeah, the mayo can
unhealthy,
be. Yeah.
Sure.
So this is a recipe. I did this on Talk of the Town a year or so ago, and basically in the big bowl there in the middle is just a mix of red and green cabbage that I just sliced up, and then on the left there are green apples. And another thing, usually in the South, people add sugar to their slaw. It's just it's something that people add, and I don't even really know why, but if you use the green apples, it'll give you a crunch as well as some sweetness. And then also the sweetness comes from cranberries. If you see that smaller bowl there on the right in the front, those are cranberries. And then in the back bowl is almonds, which provides a little punch of protein. And then I just use a vinaigrette there. I just shake up a vinaigrette, which it's going to be 2 parts extra virgin olive oil to 1 part whatever vinegar you want. I usually use apple cider to kind of go with the the apple theme.
So that is going to be a lot better.
Yes,
and you could sit outside.
It's very good for you. And actually now that people, and it'll sit in their fridge. Actually, I usually make it the night before because it'll get better. It'll kind of marry and meld together and soften the cabbage a little bit. And it'll sit in the fridge for a week. So, you know, I usually make it, that's a big batch, and I usually make it in that big of a batch and just keep it for days. And you can even put it on a sandwich later on, you know, use it as,
well, that's very good.
Yeah,
that's a lot better alternative. And I did not realize they put sugar in slaw.
Oh, yeah.
But when I hear that, I'm not shocked because sometimes it tastes so good.
But nowadays, everybody has, you know, certain nutrition, dietary, whatever whether they're gluten-free or vegan or whatever. And that actually, I'm not gluten-free or vegan. I'm a full opportunity eater, but that actually is gluten-free and vegan, so it's, you know, it's a good option to have.
Meets all that. All right, what about pizza?
Pizza again was one of those things. It's kind of a vehicle for the badness that it carries. Usually, if you're going to get pizza, you're going to want to get a thin crust pizza. However, your typical pizzas, it's very high in sodium. Which is, you know, it's where usually the tomato sauce is going to be pretty high in salt, and then you're going to have pepperoni and sausage and, you know, all the olives and all those kind of salty things that really come. So for somebody who has high blood pressure and, you know, diabetes and all that kind of stuff, it can really wreak havoc. And usually you just want to try and go for thin crust, and again, sort of like the nachos, pick your layers, you know, maybe go for just cheese and, you know, maybe Canadian bacon, or, you know, go really heavy on the veggies and then pick one, whether you want to have sausage or ground beef or, you know, something like that.
What's the worst thing you can have on there? Yeah, so I was surprised to see Canadian bacon is good.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't mind. I might as well get Canadian bacon instead of pepperoni. So if I have the choice, get that over pepperoni, right?
Yes, yeah. It's the higher processed, and then the more, the whiter white color that you see, like whether, because bacon, like if you look at raw bacon versus like ham, bacon's gonna have a lot more fat in it, and that's kind of what you see. Same way for sausage. You know, when you cook down sausage, it's usually going to shrink because there's a lot of fat in it. So, you know, maybe go for ground beef or pepperonis, and it's super high in sodium too. Is pepperoni. Any of that really highly processed sausage and pepperonis is where you're going to have the most sodium.
Okay. All right. Very good. It's something that I've been doing that I think has changed my life is making smoothies. Mm-hmm. Now, what do you think about that? How do you think? What do you think about that? Smoothies.
We've talked about it on this show before, but I'm a big proponent of making your own smoothies. You have to be very, very careful about buying smoothies from a shop, because a lot of times a smoothie is just a fancy milkshake for the most part, and it's
they'll still dump a lot of sugar in there.
Yeah, absolutely. But I usually, I'm not the type of person where I like to sip things. I like to have something that I can munch on. But smoothies are a great way to, what we were talking about, hiding greens, I think, which is great for kids. They actually think they're getting a milkshake, but you're hiding kale, or you're hiding spinach, or even like Swiss chard or something like that, whatever you want to add to it. Because if you add some Greek yogurt and bananas and the tartness and sweetness from any type of berries that you use, you're going to hide that green, the green flavor, as well as kind of the green color.
If you look at our diets, and I looked at my diet before I started doing these smoothies, I'm not getting enough greens. We don't get enough of the greens, the kale or the spinach or that kind of thing. We just don't get enough of that. And we're not getting enough vegetables and fruits and those kind of things. This allows you to get that stuff.
And the good thing about that too is whenever you're if you're hiding vegetables, whether it's from adults or kids, wherever you happen to be putting them, the greens are very bulky raw, but if you either cook them down, because they're high in water volume, so when you cook them down or when you mash them up or blend them into something, they are easily hidden, because they'll easily kind of go away. They'll disperse pretty easily. So it's easy to add vegetables to, greens to some types of like casseroles and lasagnas, and when you mix them up into things, or blend them into things, they blend well.
What are some other things that are good? Like, I'm using coconut oil now. Have you heard? Is that like a thing that's supposed to be good, or is that just a fad?
I do think it is a bit of a fad. It's kind of a trendy thing, but it does have a lot of good properties to it. To me, it's a lot like extra virgin olive oil. You can certainly have too much of it, but it is heart healthy and it is very good for you. I don't like the flavor for a lot of the cooking. I'm just not. I've never really liked coconut too much, but it can be good, especially to substitute for butter when you're baking or things like that. I think it's good, and I think coconut oil is also, when you're using extra virgin olive oil, it can be a little bit different. You can use that for like a dressing because it's a the temperature thing. It's a liquid at room temperature, but I think coconut or even when it's cold, but coconut oil is sort of like Crisco in that it solidifies pretty easily. So there's just some, when you're talking about like cooking and baking, there's some applications that
make it a little more difficult. Yeah. All right, we're going to take a break. If you want to call, there's a number, 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. Take a break. We'll be back right after this.